Welcome to the Accounting Technology Lab, sponsored by CPA Practice Advisor, with your hosts, Randy Johnston and Brian Tankersley.
Good day. Welcome to this version of the Accounting Technology Lab with my co-host, Brian Tankersley. Brian's had a good bit of travel here lately with the Acumatica Summit and the Zoho Analyst Day, and we thought it would be helpful for you to learn a little bit about the AI that Acumatica announced at Summit with Acumatica AI Studio. Now, the concepts here of Acumatica's AI is the way we think this will be incorporated into a variety of products. Remember, we think that the general tools, the Chat GPTs and the Copilot 365s and so forth, will be used for general productivity, but a lot of you will get the benefit of having AI directly in your systems. So, Brian, what did you wind up learning in Las Vegas from the Acumatica team?
Well, I will just first say that I had a great event over there. And the thing that I've been struggling with, and I think a lot of us have been struggling with, is what's the vision of how AI is going to transform my work? Okay, we can see Chat GPT and it's got a lot of gee whiz things, and it's nice, it'll summarize emails and things like that for you. But what does it really look like when we have it actually solve real business problems and it touches ERP data? Okay, and so Acumatica came out and they said basically they have a three-pronged approach. Okay, they have an AI advisor that is kind of going to do, it's going to go through and identify exceptions and anomalies and do some basic things in the background. They have a tool that will help automate workflows and help accelerate those. And then they even have an AI assistant plan a little further down the roadmap. Now, when we look at the architecture in here, the idea is that three of these will be apps, but a lot of these things will be just kind of running in the background. And again, they've layered on top of these data sources that are already there in Acumatica. Remember, it's a cloud-first platform, so it's got APIs and all the kinds of things that you need to connect into it. But they've layered in some intelligent assistants, including a help desk tool, a help tool, a task assistant, an automation agent. They've got an AI studio to help do automation and insights. They have an AI services gateway, and then you have the ability, or will have the ability soon, to connect up to external large language models and machine learning models and other things. And then Acumatica is coming out with their own AI services models so that your data isn't used publicly in some of these public models. We've had problems where data has leaked in some of the OpenAI based models between different tenants and things like that. And so we really need to make sure that we're protecting that data.
So, Brian, to that point, through the years, we have watched Acumatica have architectural ideas that I think are very innovative. Number one. Number two, this idea of keeping the AI private is going to become much more of a deal breaker or a big kingpin concept as we see it. And a lot of the publishers are trying to figure out how to get that done right now. And beyond that, I think they have a roadmap here that can be leveraged both with their own model and with external models, but they're very cognizant about the privacy of the data, which again aligns with the way we ask people to think about things.
And I would just remind you that when we look at Acumatica and Zoho, they're very cognizant of the privacy and they are very concerned about any kind of use of data for any other purpose. On the other hand, some of our other traditional vendors have said that we're going to use your AI, we're going to use your data to train our AI, and there's no way to opt out of it. Okay.
Yeah, and
So
with the new models like DeepSeek that have been introduced, there's much concern about the privacy of those models, and just like the Meta Llama model, now that it's being used by the federal government, again, we're kind of concerned. We not kind of we are concerned about the leakage on that particular model, and So that'll continue to be an issue. But, like many of the vendors in the last 12 months, the focus has been how do we leverage AI in our platforms and how do we do that effectively?
Yeah, and I don't want to turn this podcast into Brian ranting about privacy again. We're not going there. But I do want to say that I do want to go through and kind of break things down here a little bit. The AI Insights tool is the first phase of this. This is currently in beta and it's going to be in the Acumatica, the R1 2025 release that should be generally available in March. The idea is that you're going to have real-time dynamic data extraction and anomaly detection, also some automation for handling of exceptions and some predictive forecasting. And so the model that they're going to use here is they're basically using this generic inquiry query language technology, and they're using small language models here. Now, remember, the small language models are less prone to as if you recall from where we've talked about large language models, the small language models are less prone to the hallucination that is endemic in large language models. So they're more likely to get things right the first time. Also, the anomaly detection in here, again, has some machine language powered services. If you're using the Acumatica hosting, they're going to be able to use that, use all Acumatica hosted instances as potential sources without leaking the data between tenants. So the idea is that it can look at different people in similar industries and identify what really is an exception and what's not better. We also have some integration with automation tools and then some frontline components. They also have some forecasting services, and we actually saw some things at Zoho that were also looking at forecasting as another component of their AI. And they've got components to make this stuff more visualizable.
So
So,
just piling on to that thinking there, Brian, as I consider the various accounting software vendors, almost all of them are doing something in an FP&A forecasting mode. So where we used to always recommend adding on third parties to get that done, I expect more and more of them to be included.
and I will tell you all that I culled through literally hundreds of slides for the episodes we're doing this month because Mike, the CTO at Acumatica, or Mikhail, and and Raju, the chief evangelist at Zoho, they are two of the best thinkers and explainers of these very technical concepts. And so what we've tried to do is boil it down so that we can talk about computer science without talking about computer science, if that makes any sense. Because this stuff isn't brain surgery, okay? But there are some complex concepts, but you've been doing the work yourself in many of these cases, looking for the anomalies and so forth. We just got to get the language lined up. Anyway, so this is a screen capture that they actually showed from the keynote stage. So the idea here is to look for anomalous transactions in payables. And you can see in here that it identified that there are 15 bills out there for which there is a late payment alarm. And then it identifies the 15 bills that are unpaid that should be paid at this point in time. And so again, it's identified those, and then you can go through and review them and decide whether you're going to act on them or not. They also mentioned some use of this in their operations areas, and particularly in field service, where they can use machine learning to track system performance. They can do some predictive analytics. They can do some root cause forensics and then maintenance planning. The next phase was AI automation, and this was actually one of the more interesting parts. There's actually a demo that I stripped out that's about 7 minutes that we won't have time to go through in this podcast. But what they actually used this to do is to automate complex workflows, do some customization, integrate AI services, and then protect sensitive information. So the idea here is that you invoke this, it generates a prompt, it goes to the AI, it reasons, it transmits the request, it invokes whatever AI action is needed on a limited basis. The response is received, it reasons, it updates the entity, and then does the action in here. So the example that we had in here, again, it would automate complex workflows. It would do code-free customization. It integrates external AI services and protects the sensitive information. Now, the example that Mike showed from his breakout that also ended up in the day two keynote was about 5 or 6 minutes, where he went through and showed how they were using the Acumatica service tracking systems and CRM data and the operations tracking information to take a case where they were a tech support case and to boil it down and to summarize the tech support case into a resolution memo. This is a very time intensive thing, and you have to look at all the related data. And so he actually showed an AI bot, and some automation that would actually write a draft of these case closure memos so that people could learn from them quickly without having to go through and again spend an hour or two creating them. Because again, I've created those things, and it's a beast of a problem to kind of document what the real issues are. But this thing will take the case notes and boil it together pretty amazingly. Now,
Mhm.
again, for this, you've got an AI gateway. You've got that will manage the connections to the services. It will again track the usage statistics, and then it limits the sensitive information that flows through. You then have a prompt editor that you can use. And in the prompt editor that they had, they actually referred to database fields that were coming out of Jira and some of the other tools that they were using to manage the case management. And so they retrieved case numbers and customer names and all kinds of other pieces like that, directly by referring to names in almost like mail merge fields. And so they actually prescribed the format in the prompt, and then it created this formatted thing. Then they have a processing engine again that goes through and does it. Okay. Now, these agents, so again, and I will tell you that that was the most impressive demo I've seen in a long time. Now, don't get me wrong here, okay, folks. I've been impressed with Mike, the Acumatica CTO, for a long time, and he always finds a way to blow me away with his demos that he does, because he's thinking, he's like a chess grandmaster. He's 5 moves ahead of me, and he comes in answering the question that I wanted to ask, and then answering the two that come up once he tells me the answer to that. Okay. Anyway, now looking at the AI agents, this is a way that you can basically just ask natural language questions of this. You've seen this in Power BI. You've seen this in a lot of other things in here. Now, what's different here is they have some automation to trigger AI-driven workflows related to these, where it notifies you when you reach exception conditions. And again, you can dynamically present ERP data, and again, you get information to track how things are actually going in the field. In here, we also have a chat engine. Acumatica has their AI that again will do chat and voice interface, so you can do it the way you want to. We can have the Acumatica is doing their own AI service. And again, the reason there is that we don't want anybody's AI trained off of your data. And so the idea here is that they would take anonymized data, and they would just send the information out to it that was needed to answer the query. So you could, for example, use this tool to analyze, let's say, human resource data without necessarily linking it to any PII. So the engine could make good conclusions off of fields other than PII, and so it could go forward. We also have some AI automation and insights in here. But again, this just kind of shows you how this works. Again, you're going to enter the prompt in. There will then be some chat processing. That'll get translated into API calls by the AI Studio. It will then go out to the ERP, access the API, pull the information that's needed, go in and reason, generate the response, and then complete this. And I got to tell you, those closure memos, those case closure memos that I talked about earlier, I I wish that we had the time in the podcast to show you the nature of what they looked like because it was just everybody in the room. I mean, the guy Mike had 300 people in the room, and they were just for the breakout session, a 300 person breakout session. Just think about that for a minute, and we were all just gobsmacked by it. So I got to tell you that they're really doing it right. Now, different pieces of this are going to show up in different times. Some of this stuff isn't going to show up until late this year, early next year. But what I think they did a great job of, and what you need to know, is that Acumatica did a great job of taking AI, boiling it down in to solve real world problems, sticking, and real work that human beings would actually do that would be on their job descriptions. So anyway, Randy, that's what I saw.
Well, Brian, I had to let you run because I knew you were impressed with what you'd seen. I had reviewed the materials and had a fairly good understanding of where everything would go. But, in terms of innovation from a mid-market vendor that understands what they're trying to get done, Acumatica has done a very nice job advancing themselves again. And we expect and will cover what we see going on in other mid-market competitors as they go through their various events over the next little while. So, Brian, any parting thoughts here then on Acumatica Summit? I know next year it will no longer be in Las Vegas, but it's been moved to Seattle.
Yeah, they're going to
And
go to the new convention center in Seattle. The thing I would just generally say to you about Acumatica and about mid-market and the AI functions we're talking about here is that Acumatica is mid-market. Okay, this is stuff that some of it's already been done at a very technical level at the enterprise level. It's now making its way into mid-market, and it will soon make its way into entry-level accounting. And so I'm showing this to you because I want you to understand, we want you to understand here at the Accounting Technology Lab what's possible so that you start to create your expectations and your visions for what you're going to do with AI to make your life better every day in your practice.
a delight. Such a pleasure to have you listening in. We'll see you again in another Accounting Technology Lab. Good day.
Thank you for sharing your time with us. We'll be back next Saturday with a new episode of the Technology Lab from CPA Practice Advisor. Have a great week.